I'm writing this from a hotel room in Cancun, where I should be on my honeymoon with the love of my life. Instead, I'm alone, my marriage is falling apart before it even started, and I've learned that my entire childhood was built on an elaborate lie. My name is Jessica Torres, I'm 28 years old, and 3 days ago I had what should have been the perfect wedding. The ceremony was beautiful, a beach venue in Santa Barbara, 150 of our closest friends and family, my fiancé David looking incredible in his navy suit. Everything was exactly as I'd dreamed it would be since I was a little girl. Everything except for the part where I found out my supposedly dead father is actually very much alive and has been living 20 minutes away from me for the past 5 years. Let me back up and explain how we got here, because even I can barely process what happened. I grew up in Oxnard, California, raised by my mom, Carmen, and my stepfather, Robert. My mom married Robert when I was 6 years old, and he's been the only father figure I've ever known. He walked me to school, taught me to ride a bike, scared away boys when I started dating, and walked me down the aisle at my wedding. My biological father, according to my mother, died in a car accident when I was 3 years old. His name was Miguel Torres, he was 25, and he worked construction. Mom would get teary-eyed whenever I asked about him, so I learned not to bring it up very often. She'd show me a few photos, a handsome young man with kind eyes and my same dark hair, and tell me stories about how much he loved me, how excited he was to be a dad, how heartbroken he would be if he knew he couldn't watch me grow up. He would have been so proud of you, Mija, she'd say whenever I accomplished something, graduating high school, getting into UC Santa Barbara, landing my first job as a graphic designer. He wanted nothing more than to be your daddy. It was sad but also comforting, in a way. I had this romanticized image of my father as this perfect man who loved me completely but was taken too soon. Robert was a good stepfather, but there was always this part of me that wondered what life would have been like with my real dad. When I got engaged to David last year, one of the hardest parts was knowing that my biological father wouldn't be there to see me get married. I'd see my friends with their dads, getting emotional during father-daughter dances, and feel this ache for something I'd never had. David and I decided to include a special moment in our wedding ceremony to honor my father's memory. During the reception, I planned to give a speech thanking everyone for coming and specifically mentioning how I knew my father was watching over us from heaven. 3 months before the wedding, I decided I wanted to know more about my father's family. Maybe I had grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins who would want to be part of my wedding. Maybe there were relatives I could connect with, people who knew my father and could share more stories about him. I asked my mom if she had contact information for any of his family members. "Oh, Mija," she said, looking uncomfortable. "His family, they weren't good people. They blamed me for the accident, said if he hadn't been working extra shifts to support us, he wouldn't have been on the road that night. After he died, they wanted nothing to do with you or me. I tried to reach out a few times over the years, but they made it clear we weren't welcome. This seemed strange to me, but I didn't push it. Some families are complicated, and grief makes people do cruel things. But I couldn't let it go completely. A few weeks before the wedding, I decided to do some genealogy research on my own. I figured if I could find any of my father's relatives on social media, maybe I could at least send them a wedding photo, let them know how I turned out. I started with basic online searches. Miguel Torres, Oxnard, California. Miguel Torres died 1997. Miguel Torres, construction worker. I found nothing. No death records, no obituaries, no news articles about car accidents involving a Miguel Torres in 1997. This was weird, but not necessarily alarming. Record-keeping in the late 90s wasn't as comprehensive as it is now, especially for working-class immigrants. Maybe the records were filed under a different spelling, or in a different county. I tried a different approach. I searched for Torres family Oxnard and started looking through social media profiles, hoping to find someone who might be a relative. That's when I found him. Miguel Torres, 53 years old, living in Ventura, California. In his profile photo, he was standing next to a truck with Torres Construction painted on the side. He had the same dark hair as the man in my childhood photos, the same kind eyes, but older, grayer, very much alive. My hands were shaking as I clicked through his photos. There were pictures of him with a woman I didn't recognize, photos from job sites, family barbecues with people who could have been my aunts and uncles and cousins. There was no mention of a daughter named Jessica anywhere on his page. I stared at that profile for hours, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. This had to be a different Miguel Torres, right? It's a common name. This was just a coincidence, a man who happened to share my father's name and profession. But the resemblance was unmistakable. This man had my nose, my jawline, my thick eyebrows. When I compared his photo to the ones my mother had shown me, there was no doubt. This was my father, 25 years older but definitely the same person. And he was alive. I didn't know what to do with this information. My wedding was in 2 weeks. I had dress fittings, final head counts, a rehearsal dinner to organize. The last thing I needed was to discover that my entire life story was apparently a lie. I decided to wait until after the wedding to confront my mother. Whatever the explanation was, and I couldn't even imagine what it might be, it could wait a few more weeks. Except it couldn't wait, because on my wedding day, Miguel Torres showed up. The ceremony itself was perfect. David and I exchanged vows on the beach as the sun set behind us. I cried happy tears, he cried happy tears, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. Robert walked me down the aisle with so much pride and love that I almost forgot about the confusion surrounding my biological father. During the cocktail hour, while guests were mingling and taking photos, a woman I didn't recognize approached me. "Jessica," she said tentatively. "You're Carmen's daughter." She was about 50, with graying hair and a nervous smile. She looked familiar but I couldn't place her. "Yes," I said. "I'm sorry, do we know each other?" "I'm Rosa," she said. "Rosa Torres. I'm your aunt. Your father's sister." The world tilted sideways. This was the family that supposedly wanted nothing to do with me, that had blamed my mother for my father's death and rejected us both. "My aunt?" I managed to say. "But my father is." "He's here," Rosa said quietly. "He's been wanting to meet you for years, but Carmen told us you didn't want anything to do with our family. When we heard about the wedding through mutual friends, we couldn't stay away anymore. I felt like I was going to faint." "He's here. At my wedding?" Rosa nodded toward the bar area. "That's him, the man in the gray suit talking to the bartender." I turned and saw him. Miguel Torres, my supposedly dead father, very much alive and holding a beer at my wedding reception. He was exactly the man I'd seen in the Facebook photos, and exactly the man from my childhood pictures aged 25 years. "I don't understand," I whispered. "He's supposed to be dead. He died in a car accident when I was 3. Rosa's face crumpled with sadness and confusion. "Jessica, your father never died. He's been looking for you your entire life. Carmen disappeared with you when you were 3 and told us she was moving back to Mexico. We tried to find you both for years, but we had no idea you were living just an hour away." The ground beneath my feet felt like it was dissolving. 25 years of my life, 25 years of believing my father was dead, 25 years of grieving a man who was alive and apparently looking for me. "She told us," Rosa continued, tears in her eyes, "that you grew up hating us, that you blamed us for not supporting her after Miguel's death. We thought you knew the truth and just didn't want a relationship with your father's family." I couldn't process what I was hearing. Not only was my father alive, but there had been an entire family, aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents, who thought I had rejected them. "I need to sit down," I said. Rosa guided me to a chair at one of the cocktail tables. David saw me from across the party and started walking over, probably wondering why his new wife looked like she'd seen a ghost. There's more, Rosa said gently. Your father, he remarried. He has 2 other children, your half-siblings. Isabella is 20, and Carlos is 17. They've grown up knowing about you, hoping to meet you someday. Half-siblings. A stepmother. An entire second family I never knew existed. David reached us just as Miguel approached our table. For 25 years, I'd imagined what it would be like to meet my father. In my fantasies, it was always emotional but joyful, a reunion in heaven, or a miracle where he somehow survived the accident. I never imagined it would happen at my wedding reception while wearing a $3,000 dress and a tiara. Jessica, Miguel said softly, and his voice was exactly how I'd imagined it would sound. Deep, warm, with just a hint of an accent. You're so beautiful, Mija. You look just like your mother did at your age. I stared at him, this stranger who was my father, this ghost who was flesh and blood. You're supposed to be dead, was all I could manage to say. His face crumpled with pain. I know what she told you. I've known for years, ever since we hired a private investigator and found out where you were living. We found out about the lies, about Robert, about the life she built for you. We wanted to contact you, but our lawyer said it could be traumatic, that we should wait until you were an adult and let you decide. You knew where I was? I asked. This whole time, you knew where I was and you never tried to contact me. We tried, Rosa interjected. We sent letters to your high school, to your college. Carmen must have intercepted them. We tried to friend you on Facebook, but your settings were private. We even came to your college graduation ceremony, but we didn't know if approaching you would be welcome. David was standing behind me, his hand on my shoulder, completely confused. Jessica, what's going on? Who are these people? I looked up at my new husband, this man I'd promised to share everything with, and realized I didn't even know who I was anymore. How could I explain to him that his wife's entire life story was a fabrication? David, I said, my voice barely working, this is my father. My father who's supposed to be dead but apparently isn't. The color drained from David's face. He'd heard the story of my father's tragic death countless times. He'd held me when I cried about missing him, had helped me plan the memorial moment in our wedding ceremony. He'd even written part of his wedding vows around the idea of loving me enough for both himself and the father I'd lost. I'm sorry, Miguel said to David. I know this isn't the right time, but when we heard about the wedding, we couldn't stay away. I've missed 25 years of my daughter's life. I couldn't miss her wedding day too. The reception was still going on around us. Our guests were laughing, dancing, taking photos, completely unaware that my world was imploding. The DJ was playing, At Last, by Etta James, the song David and I had chosen for our first dance. I need to talk to my mother, I said, standing up so fast that I knocked over my chair. I need to understand what's happening. I found my mother near the cake table, laughing with her sister and looking absolutely radiant. She'd been so happy all day, so proud, so excited about the wedding. She was wearing the navy blue dress we'd picked out together at Nordstrom, the one that made her look elegant and mother of the bride perfect. Mom, I said, grabbing her arm. We need to talk. Now. Something in my voice made her smile fade. What's wrong, Mija? You look upset. I pulled her toward the bridal suite inside the venue, away from the party. David followed us, along with Miguel and Rosa. My mother saw Miguel and stopped walking. For a moment, they just stared at each other, two people who'd once been young and in love, who'd created me together, who apparently had been living completely different versions of the same story for 25 years. Carmen, Miguel said quietly. You shouldn't be here, my mother replied, but her voice was shaking. Mom, I said, you need to explain to me right now why I just found out that my father isn't dead. You need to explain why I've spent 25 years grieving a man who's been alive this entire time. My mother looked around the room at all of us staring at her, her daughter, her new son-in-law, her ex-boyfriend, his sister, and I watched her realize that her secret was finally out. She sat down heavily in one of the bridal suite chairs and put her face in her hands. "I can explain," she said quietly. "But you're not going to understand." "Try me," I said, and I was surprised by how cold my voice sounded. My mother looked up at me with tears streaming down her face. "I was 19 when I got pregnant with you," she began. "Miguel and I weren't married, weren't even really together. We were just young and stupid." "We were together," Miguel interjected. "We were planning to get married." "No, we weren't," my mother snapped. "You were planning to get married. I was planning to finish college. When I found out I was pregnant, you wanted me to drop out, move in with you, become a housewife at 19. That wasn't what I wanted. I was hearing about my own conception like it was a story about strangers. My parents had completely different versions of their relationship, their plans, their feelings about my existence. When Jessica was born, my mother continued, Miguel wanted joint custody. He wanted her every other weekend, wanted to make decisions about her schooling, her future. But I could see how it was going to go. He was going to raise her to be like his family, drop out of high school, get married young, never leave Oxnard. I wanted more for her. So you told him I was dead? I asked, incredulous. I told him I was moving back to Mexico with you, she said. That was the original plan. But then I met Robert, and he offered us a different life. Stability, security, a chance for you to grow up in a middle-class family with opportunities. You still could have told me the truth, I said. You could have told me he was alive but that we couldn't have a relationship. Why the elaborate lie about the car accident? My mother was crying harder now. Because you kept asking about him. You'd see other kids with their fathers and want to know where yours was. It was easier to tell you he was dead and watching over you from heaven than to explain why he couldn't be part of your life. Easier for who? Miguel asked, his voice full of pain. Do you have any idea what it's been like, knowing my daughter was out there somewhere thinking I abandoned her? Do you know how many nights I've lain awake wondering if she was okay, if she needed me? She was okay, my mother shot back. She was better than okay. She went to college, has a career, married a good man. She had opportunities she never would have had if she'd grown up in your world. That wasn't your decision to make alone, Miguel said. She was my daughter too. I was listening to them argue about my life like I wasn't even there. 28 years old, sitting in my wedding dress, discovering that every major decision about my childhood had been made without considering what I might have wanted. Did Robert know? I asked suddenly. Did Robert know that my father was alive? My mother nodded miserably. He knew from the beginning. It was his idea to tell you that Miguel had died. He thought it would be easier for you to bond with him if you weren't hoping your real father would come back. Another betrayal. Robert, the man who'd raised me, who I'd called Dad for 22 years, had participated in this lie my entire life. David had been silent through this whole conversation, but now he spoke up. Jessica, we need to get back to the reception. People are going to start wondering where you are. He was right. We had 150 guests who were expecting a celebration, not a family therapy session. But how was I supposed to go back out there and pretend to be happy when my entire understanding of myself had just been shattered? Give us 5 more minutes, I told David. He nodded and stepped outside, but I could see through the window that he was pacing, running his hands through his hair. Mom, I said, I need to know everything. Right now. Are there other lies? Other secrets? She shook her head. Just this. Just Miguel. What about his family? I asked, looking at Rosa. What about grandparents, aunts, uncles? Did I have family this whole time who wanted to know me? Rosa nodded through her tears. Your grandmother Elena is still alive. She's 78 now. She has a picture of you as a baby on her mantelpiece, and she's been praying for you every day for 25 years. She's at home right now because she was too nervous to come to the wedding, afraid you'd reject her. A grandmother. A grandmother who'd been praying for me my entire life while I thought I had no family on my father's side at all. Your grandfather passed away 5 years ago, Rosa continued. But before he died, he made Miguel promise to keep looking for you. You have 4 aunts, 3 uncles, and 12 cousins. There's a whole family that's been waiting to love you. I felt like I was drowning. All these relatives, all these relationships, all these people who'd been wondering about me while I grew up thinking I was alone on my father's side. I need to go back to the party, I said finally. I can't process this right now. Not today. Miguel stood up. Jessica, I know this is overwhelming. But I want you to know that I never stopped loving you, never stopped hoping I'd get to meet you again. I know I can't make up for 25 years, but I'd like to try to be part of your life now, if you'll let me. I looked at this man who was my father, this stranger who shared my DNA, this person who'd been grieving my absence while I'd been grieving his death. I don't know, I said honestly. I don't know anything anymore. The rest of the wedding reception was a blur. I went through the motions, cut the cake, threw the bouquet, danced with David too, at last, while pretending my life hadn't just exploded. People kept commenting on how radiant I looked, how happy I seemed, how perfect everything was. If only they knew. Miguel and Rosa left after an hour, but not before giving me their phone numbers and addresses. When you're ready, Miguel said, we'll be here. The next morning, David and I were supposed to fly to Cancun for our honeymoon. Instead, we had the biggest fight of our relationship. I can't believe you didn't tell me, he said as we packed our suitcases. You've known for weeks that your father might be alive, and you didn't say anything. I didn't know for sure, I said. I thought I was going crazy. I thought it was just a coincidence. You could have talked to me about it, he said. That's what marriage is supposed to be, sharing things, figuring them out together. He was right, and I knew it. But I also felt like my entire identity had been built on a lie, and I didn't know how to share something when I didn't understand it myself. What else don't I know about you? David asked. What other secrets are you keeping? I'm not keeping any secrets, I said. I just found out that my mother has been lying to me my entire life. I'm a victim here too. Are you? He asked. Or are you so used to keeping things to yourself that you don't know how to be in a real partnership? That hurt because it was probably true. I'd grown up in a house of secrets, raised by people who thought lies were kinder than truth. Maybe I'd learned to do the same thing. We've been in Cancun for 3 days now, and it's been tense. David is trying to be supportive, but I can tell he's hurt that I didn't trust him enough to share what I was going through. I'm trying to enjoy our honeymoon, but every time I see a father with his daughter on the beach, I think about Miguel and all the years we lost. I've been texting with Rosa. She's sent me photos of the family, pictures from holidays and birthdays and graduations I missed. Photos of my half-siblings, Isabella and Carlos, who look so much like me it's startling. Photos of my grandmother Elena, who has my eyes and my stubborn chin. There's a photo from Carlos's high school graduation last year. Miguel is standing next to him, beaming with pride, and I can see the sadness in his eyes. I wonder if he was thinking about missing my graduation, about all the milestones he wasn't there for. I've also been texting with my mother, who's been apologetic but defensive. I did what I thought was best, she keeps saying. You had a good life. You went to college, you have a career, you found love. Would any of that have happened if you'd grown up poor with a father who never finished high school? Maybe she's right. Maybe I did have more opportunities growing up middle class with Robert than I would have had with Miguel. But that wasn't her decision to make alone. She stole 25 years of relationship between me and my father, 25 years of knowing my extended family, 25 years of understanding who I really am. The worst part is that I don't know what to do next. Do I dive headfirst into building a relationship with Miguel and his family? Do I take it slowly? Do I focus on my marriage and deal with this family drama later? David keeps asking me what I want to do, and the honest answer is that I don't know. I spent so many years mourning a father who wasn't actually dead, and now I have the chance to know him, but I don't know if I can trust my own feelings. What if we don't have anything in common? What if the father I've been grieving was better than the real man? What if meeting him ruins the perfect image I've carried in my heart all these years? And what about Robert? He's been my dad for 22 years. He taught me to drive, helped me with math homework, scared away boys, walked me down the aisle. Does discovering the truth about Miguel diminish what Robert and I have built together? I called Robert yesterday from our hotel room. Did you ever regret it? I asked him. The lie about Miguel? There was a long pause. I regretted that it was necessary, he said finally. But I never regretted raising you as my own. You're the best thing that ever happened to me, Jessica. I hope learning about Miguel doesn't change that. I told him it didn't, and I meant it. But everything feels different now. My whole life story has changed, and I don't know how to integrate this new information with everything I thought I knew about myself. Miguel has been respectful about giving me space, but I can tell he's eager to build a relationship. Rosa told me he's been carrying around a baby photo of me in his wallet for 25 years. He's created this whole fantasy version of who I might have become, and I'm terrified of disappointing him. What if I'm not the daughter he's been dreaming about? What if I'm too different, too middle class, too educated, too removed from his world? What if we meet and realize we're strangers who happen to share DNA? But what if we don't? What if there's a real connection there? What if I've been missing out on a relationship that could have enriched my entire life? David and I fly home tomorrow, and I still don't know what I'm going to do. Part of me wants to call Miguel and arrange to meet Isabella and Carlos, to visit my grandmother Elena, to learn about the family I never knew I had. But part of me wants to pretend the wedding never happened, that I never learned the truth, that I can go back to my simple narrative of being raised by a loving mother and stepfather after tragically losing my biological father. The problem is that you can't unknow something once you know it. I can't go back to grieving Miguel's death now that I know he's alive. I can't pretend I don't have half-siblings and aunts and uncles and a grandmother who've been waiting to meet me. And I can't ignore the fact that my mother lied to me for 25 years about something fundamental to my identity. Last night, David asked me if I thought I could ever forgive my mother completely. I don't know, I said. She stole 25 years of relationship between me and my father. She let me grow up thinking I was unwanted by half my family. She let Miguel think I'd rejected him. She made a unilateral decision about my life and then built an elaborate lie to maintain it. But she also gave you opportunities you might not have had otherwise, David pointed out. She gave you Robert, who's been a good father to you. She gave you stability and education and a chance to build the life you wanted. He's right, and that's what makes this so complicated. I'm not sure I can be grateful for the opportunities one had while also being angry about the relationship I was denied. I don't know how to hold both truths at the same time. Tomorrow I go home to face all of this. I need to decide if I want to meet my father's family. I need to figure out how to rebuild trust with my mother. I need to work on my marriage with a man who's learned that his wife keeps secrets even when she doesn't mean to. Most of all, I need to figure out who Jessica Torres actually is now that everything I thought I knew about my story has changed. Final question: how do you build a relationship with a parent you've never known after 25 years? Is it possible to forgive someone for lying about something this fundamental, even if they thought they were protecting you? And how do you integrate a completely new family into your life when you're already an adult with your own established identity and relationships?